Hi, I'm Roberta Fernandez. AHARA is an acronym for a higher awareness and realization of your abilities. It is actually an old Sanskrit term that refers to the support of consciousness and eliminating everything which is not the intrinsic or higher nature of yourself. This is a very special program. It's not for everybody, but I want to tell you why I created AHARA. It results from obviously my cumulative knowledge and everything that I've gained from being a serial entrepreneur over these last, oh my gosh, 40 years and spanning multiple disciplines within that time. It's a unique way to approach problem solving and goal setting and self-development and basically life in general. This program is forward thinking and positively focused in a new way of thinking and viewing your entire world. Before I was a hypnotist, I was a business consultant and a trainer in the corporate sector. I worked with universities and high schools, governments, nonprofits, and corporations, businesses of all sizes. And my specialty was systems thinking and organizational change and emotional intelligence. So applying the tools that I was using required a real shift in thinking. And this was challenging for a lot of my clients because their processes had become so ingrained in their culture and throughout every aspect of their culture that significant change in thinking would be too disruptive to their systems. And of course, this was necessary, but it was easier said than done. And humans have been working within the same well-defined system for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been taught to think in either or ways of thinking, where things must neatly fit into specific protocols. And I've come to believe that instead of trying to change the systems that keep us stuck, what is most effective is to focus on our consciousness. This state of awareness is where all ideas and thoughts come from, and it's full of endless possibilities. Einstein said we can't solve today's problems with the same level of thinking that got us here. And this is really what this program is all about, because your inner self determines how you see the world and the actions that you take. Your beliefs and your rules about life are formed at a very young age and are reinforced over time. Protective mechanisms keep you from changing and sometimes even knowing and understanding the beliefs that you actually hold. And these beliefs and perspectives shape your perception of what you think is real. So let me give you an example of why this concept of reality is questionable at best. Years ago, my husband and I decided to take our 6-year-old daughter on her first whitewater rafting trip. So we carefully selected the river. We weren't obviously going to do class 5 rapids with her like we like doing, but just a few small ones to gently introduce her to this new adventure. So it went very well. And a few months later, we were sitting around with family talking about this vacation. And you would have thought from the stories that each one of us was telling that we were on different rafts on a different river. But the reality was that we did go on a rafting trip, but our perspective of the experience was unique to each one of us. Now, in quantum physics, the term observer effect applies to this mechanical device that interacts with objects and its effects on measuring the results of whatever the experiment is. And though a physicist might object to the word observer being utilized with humans in real life situations, it's reasonable to see how your perspective may impact the experience of something, just about everything, actually. So the recounting of our trip through the eyes of a 6-year-old first-time rafter, a nervous mom, and a no-holds-barred dad made the retelling of that adventure all very different. And the world is full of people of all kinds, creating their own unique river of observations based on their individual experiences and their beliefs. So it's time for us to realize that one piece of reality doesn't necessarily make up the whole map. Reality is multidimensional because each person is part of this big hologram, and each component of the entire hologram is reflected in each one of us. And yes, I do admit I am a Trekkie. There's a universe of possibilities, and yet humans only select what they see right from obvious options in front of them, usually from what they can predict and control. And they hold tight to control the ever-changing conditions all around them. And this creates a disdain for change when life is uncertain. This logical and linear way of thinking has reached its limits because the world is ever expanding into this timeless space in this universe that we live in. And it's necessary to step out of that old systemic way of thinking to leap forward into what's really possible. So intentional manifestation of this requires a deeper level of consciousness, a deeper level of awareness and clarity of thought. When you understand that you're observing and creating your own reality, you allow for this both and way of thinking. You're now living life rather than letting life control you. You create from the perspective of where you want to be rather than from where you are. And science has shown through many, many experiments, and I've talked here ad nauseum probably for regular followers on these blogs about how our thoughts create our reality. And research proves that the brain can't tell the difference between what's real and what we vividly imagine. I've realized that the work I did in organizations is much easier to accomplish individually. Of course, if understood and practiced by corporate leaders and government leaders, it could change the world. So the requirement for success is really the desire for change. And this, of course, is why people are going to embark on this journey of AHARA. And it brings us back to the very beginning of my talk here. 40 years of learning have gone into the creation of AHARA. And sometimes I, like everybody else, I'm human too. I get sucked back into the old ways of thinking and, push against new ideas that are being presented to me. And it still happens because I'm evolving just like you. But we are at a time in our world where we need people to think differently, to demonstrate how to create a new and improved world. My objective in creating AHARA is to contribute to develop progressive thinkers. Some might say that this idealism is an old way of thinking, perhaps, but in the reality that I'm choosing to create, it's a world where everyone can see themselves as a part of the whole without feeling like they have less because someone else is prospering. A world in which people dare to solve big problems because they can see infinite possibilities and solutions. A world in which people are hopeful and excited about the future. So, to get different results, you need to think differently. You need to think different thoughts. Some of AHARA's tenets may seem curious, but if you desire to think differently, to be different, AHARA might be a good fit for you. And you can understand how this new way of both and thinking improves your life, helps you take quantum leaps forward in your self-growth and realization, and in doing so, improve the world simultaneously.